Okay, well, thanks for being with us. Susan, Susan Eggman running for state senate, and actually you're the incumbent, I believe. Isn't that right?
I am a sitting assembly member and I am running for state senate.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you're out in the Central Valley. We've been talking about produce all day. Your audience will be right at home with that.
Okay.
Can you tell us a little bit about your campaign?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Susan Eggman. I grew up in Stanislaus County, which is the county that the state senate seat sits in, Stanislaus County and San Joaquin County. And I have been representing San Joaquin County in one capacity or another since 2006 on the Stockton City Council. And then I began serving in the state assembly in 2012. So I currently, well, in the assembly, we've ended session now, but I chair the agriculture committee. So that's one of my areas of focus is ag. I also serve on natural resources. So the interplay between ag and our natural resources, I feel like I've been at the kind of the corner, the middle of that. Like, how do we make both of those things work? How do we ensure we get clean air and clean water? But how do we also make sure we continue to feed the world as we do with our California agriculture? I also serve on the utilities committee, so I've been very involved in the issues around energy. We have a committee hearing on Monday, still talking about the some of the issues around energy, which we will be dealing with for the next, probably the next decade or so. And then I serve on appropriations, so everything that comes through with money. And I also serve on business and professions. I grew up on a farm. I'm a military veteran, combat medic. But my professional life has been as a social worker. I'm a licensed mental health worker, and I'm on leave still from Sacramento State as a professor of social work. So do you want to ask me some questions or just talk about my areas that I do a lot of work on around mental health? I have done a lot around agriculture, natural resources, and our recycling economy. We have a huge issue that we need to deal with and how we deal with our waste. Or it will deal with us at some point.
Why don't you go ahead? I'm going to have a question or two about agriculture, but I'd like to hear you tell us what's most important to you in this campaign.
Probably what's most important to me, I think, is just being able to represent people. When you ask yourself about, should you run for a seat or should you not? I ask myself, and I encourage anybody else to ask themselves, who's the best person for the job? Is there somebody more qualified than me? I don't think so. Again, just because I grew up in Stanislaus County, I have represented San Joaquin County. So my work has been, and what I intend to focus on in the Senate is around the issues of mental health. I think that is critical in the state of California and our nation right now. I think it's analogous to our wildfires for a while, right? We used to clear cut down old growth. We realized that wasn't a good idea, so we went too far to the other side where we didn't do anything. The same can be said with mental health. We used to hospitalize anybody who we didn't like the way they looked or talked or walked, and then we went to a different way where we didn't hospitalize anybody or think that anybody should have any kind of rights taken away. And I would offer that on both issues, we need to get back to the middle where most people live. I think what we see on our streets with the issues of mental health don't do anybody any good and is not, does not provide dignity. As a social worker, I have felt that my role has kind of been that if I can find barriers to dignity, to break them down, if we can find pathways to build them. I have long been an advocate to have the 14th California State University. I'd like to see it be a Cal Poly in Stockton, San Joaquin County. Stockton is the largest city in the state of California without a public four-year university. The county is the largest one without a public university or one within a 50-mile radius. We do have 4 state prisons, but we do not have one public university. So when you look at some of the disparities that we face in our community, we can see that, if you can see it, you can be it. And what we see with the state that has invested with us is not the picture we see of ourselves or would like to. So we're doing a lot of work to prepare our folks to be able to go to a public four-year university. The governor just put a couple $1 million in a study for this last year to see where should the next public university be. We like to think Stockton was very high on that list. So the issues around how we prepare for the future, how do we prepare our workforce, again, on issues around technology, on agriculture, healthcare issues, and just moving people around. I've also been very big on public transportation, especially as it relates to rail. If anybody knows, familiar with the Central Valley, going into the Bay Area, that Altamont Pass can get backed up forever with traffic. So we got authorized a couple of years ago, something called the Valley Link that will connect the ACE train and the BART right up over the Altamont. So we got that authorized. We are currently working on obtaining funding for that. So I like to think it's a plan to lay our tracks for the future, that and the university. And again, continue to work on issues around the Delta is the central part of my district. It is also the hub of water issues in California. So I have been very involved in issues around water. I was the Northern California Delta area negotiator for the water bond we did a couple of years ago, and made sure no money went to transport our water away, but just improve the quality of water all over the state to continue to increase self-reliance where people and things are grown, and don't just become overly dependent on taking things from the Delta.
Okay. We've covered a lot of these issues today. Given that you're from the Valley, the San Joaquin, I do want to ask you about some agricultural issues, because we haven't had as many candidates from the rural parts of the state. So California leads the country in agriculture, by far the largest agricultural economy, and it leads the nation in a lot of other ways. But a lot of the laws that come here are going to spread across the country. That's why it's so important, why the rest of the nation watches what we do. And one of the things I've noticed is that there's a lot of, you mentioned ag tech and technology in agriculture. And agriculture is becoming kind of a technology-enabled business now. And it's coming and it's having the same sorts of problems that all the other industries have that use technology. And I'm particularly talking about data. And I've seen bills introduced in Sacramento around farm data. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about whether we should have a California farm data law, just like we have a consumer privacy, a consumer data law, and what that should look like, if at all.
And when you're referring to agriculture data, you mean data taken from crops grown or from?
Yeah, from farms, because I think what we've realized is that the data that the farmers have is a pretty valuable product. And there's a feeling that a lot of the tech companies here in Silicon Valley, where I am, are getting that data, and farmers might not want them to have it. So I've heard proposals about protecting farmers through farm data laws, although I don't know that anybody's done it yet. I keep hearing these proposals. Is that something that's on your agenda?
No, it's to be very honest, it's not something I've heard a lot about. So it's not bubbling up through the legislature.
Okay, well, we'll make that just an issue unique to me, maybe. Let's get back to one of the issues you were talking about, is homelessness. A lot of the people were talking about the homelessness problem here in California, and it certainly has gotten a lot worse, I think, and probably will because of what's going on in the state. I think you referenced it as a mental health issue. Is there anything else the state should be doing or could be doing to stem the tide of what's about to happen?
Well, so a couple things. I think one, we need to build more housing, and we know that housing in California is the #1 driver of poverty because our housing costs are so expensive. I authored a bill last year, and we got it all the way through the committees, but it died in appropriations, to be able to convert hotels and motels into housing. These are places that already, they are already zoned for people to live. And again, we can think about this with our fires and environment as well. I think it's better for people to live in areas that already have a footprint that are easier to protect from a public safety perspective around fires and issues and power. But the ability, I think, to more quickly convert both hotels and motels, as well as a lot of retail and office buildings. I think we've all learned through COVID that we're going to find different ways to work, and that they won't always be in the office, and they won't always require us to drive someplace. So I think we'll see more vacancies, if you will. And I think as much as we can turn those easily into housing, and again, that's where the technology will exist. I mean, I was just in a conversation with one of my friends who's trying to get 5G around the state. There's still pockets where people don't have access to the internet. So the more closely we can live or take our existing infrastructure and improve it for housing and
Sorry
develop
there,
that for housing.
we lost your audio. You're not muted. We lost your audio. Uh-oh, looks like we're
Okay.
losing. Okay, now you're
Uh-oh.
back. Oh, well, looks like we lost Susan. Maybe she'll be able to log back in. If you can hear her or see her, chat me because I cannot.